past all of them as well. What a move from the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Your Monday night starts right here with us on RaceSpotTV, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the all-important Albert Whitted Airport. This is St. Petersburg here in Tampa Bay, and we are getting ourselves ready for racing action here of 1 hour and 45 minutes. My name's Shakespeare, Jeremy Scott, along with me for today's action. And Jeremy, an enduro round here at St. Pete has all the makings of the toughest round on the schedule.
It really does. Of course, we go from one street course to another. This time, we're going enduro racing around St. Petersburg, down, as you said, airport runway and through a park. Why not have both?
Yeah, you've absolutely got it. It's the sort of circuit that says, I'll race you over to Pioneer Park and back, but it ends the opening half of the season. They'll have an enduro in 2 weeks at Circuit of the Americas, but this is really your American start to the end of the race, or your North American start with COTA, Sonoma, Mosport, Miami, Belle Isle, and Watkins Glen to end out the championship. It's been an international flair to start. And in your Pro Championship standings, Anders Mira has not had a single win all season, but his consistency puts him on top, with James Boumet then just 8 points back. Ross McFarlane is third with Leander Gabrielson up to fourth. Aidan Young sneaking his way up to fifth with Alexander Davidson sixth. Lucas Prada and Jack Sedgwick are seventh and eighth for Adidas Racing by WSR and Inex Racing, with Arthur Thurtle and Dennis Grabowski rounding out your top 10. In the Pro-Am standings, it's starting to look more dominant now for William Guthrie, who moves himself over 60 points clear. He will move himself a full 64 over the top of Michael Gray. Tommy Vidal up to third, with Aidan Carter fourth and Ben Cullen for Effect Simulations in 5th. Josh Boot over at Empire Motorsports is 6th, with Taylor Lane 7th and Ben Ultria in 8th. It's then Ivan Turnison who is in 9th position, as Joe Newman, the second of the Empire cars, rounds out top 10 in category. In the AM standings, it has been dominant so far by Jana Schaltain, who is there for the Fry Guys Motorsports, with Tristan Engelstad in 2nd and Eric Hartmann now tied on points for 3rd and 4th with Seaman Andre Livingston. Gianni Taher is in 5th, with Jaco Vonderlit in 6th and Benjamin Gregory 7th. Dean Timms sees Ben Bennyworth behind him by 6 points in 9th position, as Jacques Eva for Epic Sim Racing rounds out your top 10. In the Team Pro standings, Adidas Racing by WSR are in a close quarters scrap, with RAA SimSport 1 just 60 points between them, as Vulcan Sim Racing Team are further back by 254. You've then got Altitude Frame Esports Pure Sims, WSR Veterans. They've got a slender margin over Altitude Frame Esports, with WSR Esports 7th, Benari Racing in 8th, with Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge, and Atomic Esports rounding out your top 10. In the Team AM standings, Full Tilt V Motorsport have the control there, but the Fry Guys Motorsport team are hotting up the charge with RAA SimSport 2, Full Tilt Motorsport and Empire Motorsport 4th and 5th, with Quad Dash Racing in 6th. Then it's RAL Racing X Project 91 Academy, as Epic Sim Racing are 7th, and Boosthead Motorsports find themselves in position number 8. So, we find ourselves now just about ready to go over to your starting grid, where Ethan Critchley will be on the pole position, as Nikolai Perlison will be then alongside in the 2-4-2. James Boumet will line from 3rd, as Leander Gabrielson is there in 4th position. Aidan Young, 5th in the championship, 5th on the grid, as the Pro-Am William Guthrie gets a great qualifying, 6th for him in the Full Tilt V Motorsports machine. There is your championship leader. He'll go from 7th, Anders Mira, with Jack Sedgwick alongside in the 11 in 8th place. Alexander Davidson starts this one in 9th, with Michael Evdoka there in 10th, just 0.3 of a second splitting the top 11 and 12, as Lucas Prada and Andrew Archer there. Andy getting a huge time there in 12th, as Aidan Carter starts in 13th and Dennis Grabowski in 14th. Carol Stote is then 15th. First time we've seen him for a while, as Arthur Thurtle will be alongside him. On row 9, it's David Baker and Phil Samways there in the Lamborghini. Michael Gray will start this one from 19th, with Ben Cullen 20th. Adam Watson will go from 21st, and Two Little Ducks says 22nd is where the AM pole lies for Tristan Engelstad of Quad Dash Racing. Tommy Vidal is 23rd, and Seaman Andre Livingston there in 24th position. Paddy Falconer up on row 13. He's got Owen Neve for company from Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge, and that is 26 cars split by a second. Eric Hartmann and Jacques Eva on row 14, with Jesse Payne Wilkins and Howard Hassan making up the 30. As over we go to Benjamin Gregory of Boosthead Motorsports and Andy Shield in 32nd, with Jaco Vonderlit and Dean Timms there on row 17. Row 18, we'll see Taylor Lane and John Lloyd for the Fry Guys Motorsports team. That puts 2 seconds on the board, as Nathan Healy is the final driver to set a time. Those who are unable to be allowed to set a time in qualifying by exclusion will be Jan Dufner, Ben Ultria, the driver of the AM Championship leader Jana Schaltain, and Paul Smith, who missed last round and still had the EXQ to go out there and serve. The Porsche iRacing first safety car pulls away here on a place synonymous out there in terms of the racing sphere, Jeremy, with IndyCar racing.
Well, of course, also early in its days, they had ALMS that raced here a couple times. If you could imagine, if you think IndyCar's started here, wait till you see, LMP1s and LMP2s that ran through this circuit. But this is a challenging technical circuit. I actually had a chance to be here when they didn't have the walls there, and even then I was scratching my head wondering how the heck did they run through here. Even driving down this part of the track, as a normal person, it is just so strange to see how tight it is even without the walls.
It was the shortest variant of this circuit out there. There was a 2-mile course when it was first introduced in 1985 as the Bayfront Street course out there, and it was very much as aggressive as it went. It then found itself with a different layout that went down Beach Drive and the long run of Bayshore Drive up to 1990, then decided not going to race anymore till 2003, when it was brought back into Racing Sphere and used the airport of the Alfred Whitted Airport airport in its entirety. Out then of Pioneer Park, and a key understanding of today: get the tyres up to temperature, and they won't have much time to do that, but they'll get a lot of help from a 44-degree track temperature, but it's cooling right now at nearly 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, of course, this was also a track that was a staple of the then Pirelli World Challenge, where they had standing starts. So at least these drivers don't have to worry about that. They'll just have a rolling start down into turn 1, which is a tight right-hander, which has seen its fair share of thrills and spills. Of course, this track newer to the iRacing sphere. So a lot of drivers saying that they had to buy this track in order to race here this weekend. And I've got to say, Jake, I'm as excited for this race as I was Adelaide.
I am as well. They will round through turn 14 as they go around the taxiway and onto the main airport strip as it goes. Ethan Critchley with back-to-back pole positions now gets an early launch, and an hour 45 gets itself underway here at St. Pete as they get themselves underway. It's now going to be a big look. 3 and 4 and 5 all searching. Boumet, one having to be defensive through the early stages. Tag in the middle from one of the WSR cars, then dropping back a little bit. Then that's going to be Lucas Prada as they work through turn 3 and into 4. They final on through as the run to turn 4 goes on by on first street for the first time, and on the brakes the lunges down the inside begin.
Around in your park, it's one of the tightest sections here of the circuit. See how many drivers can make their way through it. So far so good, except for one of the atomic Lamborghinis, Archer, Andy Archer with a backup into the wall there, which is quite typical of turn number 5, especially on the starts. But we're going to replay that here shortly. Now you make your way through the kink of turn kink and then head into Dan Weldon Way. Hard braking into that left-hander, which leads you on to the IndyCar Legends namesake and sets yourself up as we got another car into the wall.
Yeah, more troubles back there, and that looks like John Lloyd there. Paul Smith also slow. Nathan Healy with a meatball flag, so he's going to have to come down to pit lane 2. So there's been dramas at the back to start this one off, but they have found themselves into single file. Critchley leading. It's going to be Pearlison in second. It's Boumet in third, and Aidan Young up one off the start. He finds himself then into 4th position, and he's done very well off of the get-go. We go a little bit further back. This is Michael Gray here in 16th as he looks to try and stay with the group in front, very close to the wall there through the exit of turn 2. It's Arthur Thurtle there in front of him trying to attack the slow starting Lucas Prada.
And of course, we're seeing drivers fall down through the order. Paul Smith, Hill and Charlie, one back into the wall. And that looks like the number 98 of Patty Faulkner. He spun his way heading into turn number 4. That's not something that you want to do, but either way, we're back underway. And I have a feeling that the way this is going and how stretched out the back of the field is, whether Critchley, Poulsen, or Boumet are in the lead, they're going to catch up to lap traffic here shortly, because in terms of a street course, it is a short distance. But the good news is everybody was saying up and down the paddock, they were really excited that, hey, at least we'll have some wideness here once we get onto the airport.
Faulkner had help. It was with Eric Hartmann that forced the turn out there that caused the damage to Faulkner. Let's take a look at Archer from the start then, and he just finds himself out wide, turn 1, over there in the car parking base. I'll tell you what, he's done a great job of getting that sorted there, Jeremy. He did not need to say he straddled 2 bays. They went through off the exit of Pioneer Park. Lloyd going around then and ultimately catching up a couple in there, and I think that's where Nathan Healy got caught as well.
Yeah, and that's going to happen there at the start because it's such a tight exit there. And if you get 2 cars there, and that's what happened. You see Patty Faulkner with a solid black flag here, but the trees are in the way. But basically, the crux of it was you got 2 cars coming together on exit, and everybody back into the wall. There's on board with Nathan Healy, and you saw that he got spun, and that was just basically game over. A couple of the cars involved, one of the Fry guys. But either way, here's Paul Smith's view of another incident. I think that was the same one that we saw him fall down through the order.
Not often you have to hit reverse out there on the racing surface, but Paul did so well to get stopped and managed to avoid the incident and to continue on. Preservation is the key word of today, and then that happened.
And that's another place to really watch out for. It's a big hot spot for some of these drivers. And Faulkner, Patty, you're not supposed to take that corner backwards.
Well, this is why Hartman, Hartman's on the middle of the road. Falcon is trying to come back onto the racing line, and he's just realized too late there's overlap.
Yeah. Well, I can say this. I've got a recommendation just for a couple restaurants where some guys have decided to call it in. It's been Altria coming through and just, where else are you going to go? Pat, he's off there, kind of struggling his way back to the pits and right in the wall.
Yeah, well, Ultra actually did quite well to avoid. On board then, as we go back to live coverage, Leander Gabrielsen in 5th position for RAA Simsport 1. That Lamborghini trying to work hard against the Corvette then of Aiden Young, working through at 11 onto Dan Weldon Way. And this, the run back to the airport then, as they set through 12 and 13. It's a short shoot straight here, 13 to 14. You set yourself up for this hairpin diamond off the exit, get the power down, a little bit of slide there and slippage from Gabrielsen. You've got to be careful about that, and the big testament of to know where the wind's going, all the flags on the left-hand side.
Well, you got to understand, too, 360 days a year, this is an airport runway. I'm very glad that nobody's had issues with the paint because it doesn't matter what series it is. With the FAA-mandated paint, it makes things a lot slick through there as you're on board with Howard Hassan as he dives to the inside for position, and that's how we're going to watch a lot of these passes being made into turn 1. Simon Andre Livingston also trying to work his way through that very tight, very tricky 1-2-3 complex. Man, this track just not only exudes history in its short time here, in motorsports, but it brings a challenge. And if you can win here, you know that you've done a lot of great work.
Yeah, if you can make passes, if you can jump up orders, this is one of those circuits where victory is earned rather than gifted out there, as Jacques Eva here for Epic Sim Racing right now finds himself looking to go out there being a driver that wants to jump up. He's -1 for the day in 29th, and so sees the way to get even just in front as far as it goes. And you're going to see quite a bit of drivers getting themselves into packs. It's an hour 45, and that's the Boosted Motorsports 113 that is there just in front. So that will be Benjamin Gregory, who he's trying to get by working along this main straight towards turn number 1, fanning out slightly to the inside, and not going to quite get that sorted, rushing through into 2, and now, well, through 1, and now into turn 2. He'll have to look behind the recovering Jan Dufner, who started 38th. He's +8 for the day and understeering hard through 3.
The complex right there, there's going to be a lot of interesting ways. Coming around the backside over by the Yacht Club, now heading down into the straightaway. Michael Gray, high, wide, and handsome over Arthur Thurtle as they work their way down through, headed towards Dan Weldon Way. Thurtle concedes a position for now, but he's not going to concede to Adam Watson as they work their way around the turn, now down Dan Weldon Way. Once again, Thurtle having to hold off Watson, but still catch up to Michael Gray. That's a great battle there.
And we know Arthur Thurtle's one of the toughest drivers to pass in a field like this one, especially what happened at the season opener, Jeremy, at Jerez.
Yeah, it's no surprise here. We've been waiting for Arthur's comeuppance, to say the least, as he's trying to hold off his teammate right there. But yeah, I mean, at least one win on the season. We've been waiting for that to happen so long here in WGTC, and really he made it happen. So now I think it's a matter of trying to find a place to go. This is going to be interesting because, yeah, he's right now 16th. He's got to have some good a good pit stop or two to try and make it up to the front. And I think if anybody could do it, it's going to be Arthur.
Yeah, it looks like that sort of day. If anybody can, it's him, and if anybody can't, you know it's going to be trouble. In fact, there's more trouble for Andy Archer over at turn number 1. He overcooked the brakes and went straight on, and is now taking the car back to pits to tow. So really tough day at the office here for Archer. Through 11. Then the chase continues on and over through to 12 and 13. Watson happy to sit back, and with a track length as short as this one here, it's not often that you get to say a track that's only 1.8 miles. It is less than 3 kilometers out there. This is a short track. It is a track where you get a lot of laps around here.
You get a lot of laps and not a lot of breaks. You get at least 2 breaks to kind of catch your breath, and then you're back on it. I would even say 3. That straightaway between 3 and 4 really is kind of a straight where you can at least get 1 minor breath period, because then you're setting yourself up to go around Pioneer Park, and that makes life very, very interesting, as you saw during the start. David Baker trying to, he's basically watching this battle between teammates as they work their way around the park, and
essentially this is going to be the sort of day where you need to be on your best out there, and David Baker down 1 at this stage. You're seeing not really massive moves up through the orders in the early goings. They are limited in terms of their fuel tank today, so this is at least a guaranteed 2-stop race that they are going to be looking at here at this one, because it's 1 hour 45 minutes. They have a 55% fuel tank limit, which should get them into a position where they can go about 35 minutes, 35 to 40 is the goal that they are looking at then. So about 1 hour and 5 we expect, half an hour, and that should be the way that you get it done. There's a tiny bit of leeway out there. There are moves going on out there as Aiden Carter just in front now has given up the place then in the Fry Guy Motorsports machine to Lucas Prada, who has made a good accomplished move through turn number 4 to get everything sorted. And so at least for the moment, Jeremy, that is a good clean pass, and that's what Lucas Prada needs.
That's exactly what Prada needs, is just to get up there and get through the field. Now trying to catch up to Grabowski to climb higher in the pro class. You see that Grabowski-Evdaka battle not too far away, and I gotta say Prada's really liking that, because now he's able to close the gap with these drivers. But Carter doing the best that he can to try and at least get higher up through the field, because he's got several cars that he's got to pass to get up to William Guthrie, who's sitting in 8th in class right now.
Yeah, so William Guthrie is the sort of driver who has done really well in qualifying, but Aiden Carter knows that he is going to be dropping points as far as this goes if he's not too careful. Battle then as we go onto the main airport runway for Jan Dufner, still trying to jump up the orders, find a couple moves, gets to the inside of Benjamin Gregory, who leaves a wide berth at turn 1. And gets the move. Oh, and there's contact behind from Sharks Eva, who saw a slither of a gap, tried to send a search party down to the inside, and, well, came up empty on the past Mustang on Mustang.
Yeah, a little bit of pony-on-pony violence as they work their way through Pioneer Park once again. And that's going to happen as well, because you're coming off a long straightaway at such a tight braking zone. You want to brake at the last minute, but at the same time, you want to try and avoid any sort of contact. And with the limits, I don't think we're going to see drivers hit their incident point limits early, because as you can tell, it's already wider than Adelaide last week, but you're still to have points in the race where near the end, some of the drivers who have been rubbing on the wall, rubbing on each other, they will hit their instant point limit. Here's Fast Tommy Vidal closing in on David Baker. Owen Neve not too far away. That's a name we haven't mentioned too much this season. A great showing from him, sitting in the top 20.
Yeah, he'll be happy with Owen. He's right in the middle of a massive group which Arthur Thurtle fronts right now, with Watson, Baker, Vidal, himself, of course, Owen Neve, Cullen, Engelstad, and Samway. So they got the AM leader in this one as well as Tommy. Fast to the inside, can't quite get there, backed out of it there through turn 4. It's one of the key places to get it done. And the moment you back out in a train, like you've got with Tommy, you leave yourself vulnerable. It's such a difficult, I would say, quagmire to get through as you go all the way around Pioneer Park, back onto Bayshore Drive. They will now go through this left. Look at a setup behind on Tommy Vidal. Owen Neve to the inside is going to command the apex here, and he's going to shove him out as he gets the pass, and suddenly one will become 2 as Ben Cullen for Effect Simulations gets the pass.
It's going to be one of those elbows out days here around St. Petersburg. Ingolstadt, wide and handsome around the final corner. Jake, I didn't think we'd see this much excitement early on. I figured some of these drivers might tiptoe their way around the circuit, but once again, they're proving us wrong. There's some great battles here. Samways tries to look to the inside, and they're side by side going into turn 1. Moves Samways up.
Yeah, Phil Samway saw Engelstad in the middle of no man's land through the final corner trying to make the move, and if you can't get it around the outside of 14, then you are vulnerable at turn 1. They fan out, everyone looking for a move. Tommy Vidal back to the inside. Not going to say Ben Cullen's going to have that, but Cullen keeps the foot in at 5. Works through 6, but you're on the wrong side of 7 and 8. You need the clearance here through these 90-degree right-handers. This is trademark endurance out there. Samways goes in too deep. So now going back through is Engelstad for position. Then Eric Hartmann is back there. The arm as they'll go side by side through 10. 2 into the wall then, as both in front and behind Engelstad is contact. And again, Tommy stuck on the outside and is going to see another place gone then. Engelstad will get the run on Dan Weldon Way.
And that's what you need right there is Engelstad tight within, side by side. Samway's watching. Look at the wiggling that everybody's doing around that final corner there. The Samway's Engelstad Hartmann battle looking quite nicely as you've got Vidal, Samway's, everybody's involved here. This is just absolutely great racing just about 15 minutes into this enduro race, as the onboard shots are just as good as some of the shots we have trackside.
Yeah, we got some brilliant views of this, and Eric Hartmann here, this shot right now shows you just how tough racing around St. Petersburg is on the brakes, trying to find it. Big send behind. Duffner is making moves. Jesse Payne Wilkins opens the door and lets him have it at 4.
And that's actually great. They're passing places where I didn't think they would. Hassan with a quick kiss on the wall as he starts to make his way around the park to go back towards the airport. Man, this is just some fantastic racing, nose to tail. Everybody trying to square each other up. And, you know, here's the thing. You got to ask, how much is too much at this point, Jake? Because the way these walls are, they're going to use up their equipment just before the first pit stop if they keep bumping on each other and hitting them.
Yeah, and that's going to be critical because you don't want to start burning the tyre too much. You don't want to start getting dings and scrapes, and the instant points start adding up. And speaking of moves, about a couple laps ago as Duffner gets a run once again, there was a move by Alexander Davidson on the championship leader Anders Mira. So Mira now back into 7th position. It's Davidson who now is +3 for the day. As he jumps to 6th. Duffner down the inside of Vidal. Vidal has to let him have it at turn 2.
There we go. Now things start to settle down as we watch this battle in the middle of the pack, and everybody trying to figure out how to get around one another. This is one of those great. This seems like this is a better start to a race we saw last week. Of course, last week and this week being new tracks to these drivers, where everybody has to figure out, okay, how do I get around here? Because you don't normally think of St. Petersburg as a sports car track, but like we said, ALMS has raced here. You know, you've seen races with World Challenge. MX5 Cup is very popular here. So there are some sports cars, but you don't see GT3 cars that much here anymore, as now everybody's single file kind of getting into a groove, and that's the most important thing here.
Yeah, stay with the cars in front. Work the pace and keep yourself with opportunities. I think that's the aim of the game today. It's taken them 15 minutes to know that and to understand that, and so they will realise today that even though you don't see too much running of GT3 spec on these fabled streets of St. Petersburg, they will have to deal with that in its regard, and I think they've actually driven quite well. They've understood quickly the assignment. Get yourself into line. Do not get yourself involved in trouble. That's why we've only seen 2 retirements here out of the start of this race. And, you know, we go to some of the other circuits out there where they've got more license to attack. They know where to go for it. And we see them slinging moves right now like it's a shootout at the OK Corral. I think they're being really well behaved to start this race.
Well, of course, I'm sure, Jake, Will's eyes saw the list of drivers who were excluded from qualifying, who had a one ban, who had a one meeting ban, and those who were told you're done for the season. And I think Andy Shield probably sat down with these drivers and said, look guys, we cannot keep racing like this. This is not the series that I have. Straighten up, or else you're going to be sat down. And I think that has part with it as well.
I think it has done. It's a change for 9th place. Jack Sedgwick and Carol Stote then battling hard. Look at this, rounding 7 and into 8 around Pioneer Park. They reach the marina there on the left-hand side, and the pass is now in the hands of Jack Sedgwick, and he gets Michael Evdoka behind him now, trying to get through. Dennis Grabowski on a tightrope there, nowhere to turn. He gets shoved out. Through goes Lucas Prada, and Grabowski will fall to the clutches now of Aiden Carter, working through the rights and lefts of 12 and 13, covered defensive line.
Yeah, one wheel out of step, and you're going to have 2 or 3 other drivers right hot on your tail as Carter now ducks in and passes Grabowski for 13th for the time being. Grabowski's going to try and do the over-under. Not going to make it happen as he's too far away.
Yeah, can't get that, and so this is a case of you're going to have to stay. Look at the front there of Dennis Grabowski at this point. The tag with the wall. His bumper is trying to come off again. Carol Stote finding Jack Sedgwick stuck on the outside, trying to make this move and looking for a way through. Again, he can't quite get there. This is what you find at street circuits. If you can't make the move straight away, look at where the group's gone. William Guthrie's a few seconds down the road now. Michael Evdoka working through in the 989. He sits there at this moment in time, position number 11. This to move to the top 10 just in front. Jack, very aggressive, very accomplished sim racer, a former pro stripe when it came to the Blancpain GT series on iRacing. He was part of that Inex Racing team that did so well, very nearly took a title in that championship up against the likes of Coanda and Redline. But now, as we watch Michael Evdoka in the Mustang for the WSR veterans, he's got the Adidas Racing by WSR driver Lucas Prada still trying to work a way through. Up over the bumps then, in towards turn number 4. And now you've got 5 and 6, which make the direct turn here through the left, over to 7 and 8. And this is where you are trying to open up the circuit, get as close as you can through this 90-degree right, attack off the exit, and know this is your secondary place to pass.
And down Bayshore Drive as they'll work their way into the hard-braking zone of turn number 10. Sedgwick, I'll tell you what, he's...
Paul Smith down there is off the road and trying to find an 1,000,000-point turn to get himself out of trouble.
Yeah, that's not a place where you want to run off, and indeed he's back underway. You see your fair share of drivers who make their way into that turn 10 runoff. It's so tight to have to turn around. He's lucky that he got there. Let's see, yeah, just goes straight off and decides he's going to do the Paul Tracy loop-de-loop right there. Nope, almost makes contact. Almost looks like a Austin Powers turnaround with the Taylor Dunn, but he's able to get it going. Sorry, Paul, I had to make that little, yeah. Either way, Poulsen, as you see on the bottom right of your screen, still sitting in second place. We got a spinner back there.
That's a big spinner.
One.
That's championship leader. That's championship leader. Anders Mira is around and is trying to find a safe way to go through, all on his own. And turn 3 is not a place you normally see a car get loose.
No, but right where he got loose, Jake, that's where they have a big bump there that you normally see the Indy cars try and avoid coming off of turn 3 so it doesn't unsettle them. So one has to wonder if he hit that bump at the right amount and just lost it, because that just looked like a car that was not happy with where it was and just absolutely lost it.
Did very well to disengage the traction control, flick spin the car around his BMW M4. There's a look, and oh, that's just a case of trying to hold on. He has nudged the nose into the barriers there, but critically, it doesn't look too bad. He dispersed most of the speed through it. He'll be able to go, but look at how far back he is now. He's behind Dean Timms. He's 33rd.
Yeah, and that's going to be a hard way to climb up through there, and I don't think a pit stop strategy can fix that. He'll be lucky to get inside the top 10 at this rate, but I have a feeling, Jake, we're going to have a new championship leader after this is all said and done, and we'll see what happens as the Falcon teammates 2 and 3 right now trying to hold off Aiden Young, who wants to catch up to Ethan Critchley, his WSR teammate, who has a 1.5 second lead. tell you, one driver who's done quite well for himself is Engelstadt. Right now, 23rd overall. One of the higher, I think he's the AM leader right now, looking at the, he's the AM leader, as Hartman about 0.4 of a second behind. Owen Neve with another great showing, as we mentioned, in the Pro-Am right now, sitting 4th in class.
Yeah, he's up 8 spots, and so Owen Neve has made good progress, 26th to 18th. So too Carroll Stoke, by the way, up 7. He's now in 8th place after starting this one in 15th. It goes to show you, you can make your chops happen here around a circuit like St. Petersburg. It may be a street circuit, and everyone says, oh, it's very difficult to pass. You still can do it, though. It's not impossible out there. Neve, we take a look with along the main run, along this airfield strip towards turn number 1. Out here on circuit, eyeing up David Baker, who is a veteran by his team name out there, but a driver who has done very, very well over the years, has loved his sim racing and has loved the pace he's got. Defensive line taken then over towards turn 4, and why not shoot the shot on the outside there? Neve just trying to force defensive lines, because the more that you force defensive, the more chances you'll have to go and be aggressive at different areas of the circuit. Covered though at 7.
Yeah, Baker looking like he's watching his mirror more than he's watching what's in front of him. A little scrape there at the wall going through the apex of turn 9. He's lucky that it didn't shoot him back out to the wall, which we see that a lot. Of course, if I'm Owen Neve, if I'm David Baker, I'm going to catch up, because I know that I can pass Thurtle and Watson right there. As you see, one of the Mercedes with Sands and nose. Yeah, getting his way around, and there we go. Yeah, that's our buddy Paul Smith, who's just graciously letting everybody by. I'll have to get that fixed when he comes in for his first compulsory pit stop. But either way, you got to be happy for Owen Neve to be this up this high and this good, as he knows that he can get the position as he's flashing his lights.
Yeah, he thinks he can get the places, he thinks he can get the points, and so he will now look to try and chase then, working through turn number 3. That short shoot run here at St. Petersburg over Dali Boulevard, which then sets itself up onto First Street, now working through this very, very technical middle sector of the lap here at 8, and over towards turn 9 is where they go through, eyeing up the ticket clinic signage there on the outside and pushing back through towards the next various corners. They've got a massive gap though, have these drivers here of Baker and Neve, as Thurtle has seen the likes of Adam Watson go through. Michael Gray, remember, was one of the first drivers to put a very nice pass on the likes of Arthur Thurtle, and look at him, miles away at the moment. Dennis Grabowski's car. How is he still piloting, Dennis Grabowski, in 13th with a car that looks something akin, that Aston Martin, to what we see on short track ovals for modifieds?
It's a Southeast U.S. thing. You know what? He'll be fine. If there's one driver who can handle it, it's Grabowski. But yeah, he's nothing. A lot of drivers going to have to come in and get some quick repairs as they take their first pit stop. Which, by the way, this is another week that Race Control has said that they will continue having the chat on to let drivers in to say, hey, I'm coming in or I'm coming out, because pitting in's not as tricky as last week, but pitting out is very tricky because it's lined up at the exit of turn 2. So, Jake, I think you and I are probably going to have to watch with one eye open. 3 wide for position.
Wow, and Howard Hassan's going to get the tag in the middle. He has a half slide, and he's able to hold himself steady. It's suddenly got busy here. Anders Mira's in the middle of this. Timms is overtaken. You've got Janos Schulte trying to get through. Paddy Falconer is in this group. Critically, Andy Shield, Jaco Vonderlit, and Jacques Eva at the front of this train. Business, in the words of good old JR, has just picked up.
Absolutely fantastic to see once again the middle of the pack not missing, going down into Dan Walden White. There's Anders Mira, your points leader for the time being, trying to close in on Hassan as he tapped his brakes through the 11-12 switchback, but Mira doing all he can to try and get up there after his mistake a couple laps ago, coming off of turn number 3.
Now here comes the chance towards turn 1 again. I think Mira doesn't have enough in a straight line here in the BMW to go and make that move, so he's going to have to be patient. He's going to have to attack in places he maybe doesn't necessarily find as easy as he works through turn 3 here, off of Dali and onto First Street. Gets the run here as he looks over towards turn number 4, lunges on the brakes down the inside. He'll have to go long ways here of 5 and 6. And he's going to have to hold then through 6. He managed 6, got the inside for 7. Now here at 8, oh, it's door to door. And Howard Hassan just has to yield. And suddenly, what happens when you're on the outside? Well, another one will go through. Dean Timms gets the run.
Yeah, a lot of these corners are just single lane corners, which, you know, that's what you're going to get at a street course for the most part, as they come off the King on Bayshore Drive, now setting up for turn number 10. And Hassan losing a couple of spots there, but you know, here's the good news. That BMW of your points leader, Anders Mira, is starting to close in on some more traffic. As Jake, we are about set for the first round of pit stops, I would say within the next 10 to 15 minutes, as Pulisin, Bume, and Young, 2, 3, and 4 work their way down Dan Weldon Way. You saw Critchley, and that's probably the first time we've seen him in any camera shot in a while.
Jeremy, I also turn around and say this to you as well. This is also 10 to 15 minutes away from the first bout of heavy lapped traffic for your leaders.
Yep, so at this point, I would consider going into the pits, Jax Eva. Just a spin off of turn 1. Not sure if too late on the brakes or what, but that's the key. If you spin here, you're going to have to wait for a lot of traffic because everybody is bunched in packs of at least 5 or 6. Then you got another gap, but yeah, I think we're going to have to see pit stops from the leaders here momentarily.
I think we are, and I think that that's going to be telling on who goes first, because if you're James Bume, for example, if you're Aiden Young, what aggressiveness have you run over this race? You haven't been able to get by Nikolai Pulisin out there, so what have you been doing the entire run? You've been sipping on the fuel compared to putting the right foot brake down on the pedal. So they're going to be in a position at a circuit with not many straight sections out there, a lot of fuel save available to save even more. And because they're doing such short laps, Jeremy, this is such a wide pit window today.
It really is, and of course, you can gamble any way you want. And here's the thing, it's going to be nice to know when drivers are pitting because they're not going to take that wide exit off of turn number 14. They're going to come in tight because it's a very close pit in from the exit of the corner. But yeah, the gas saving has been nothing short of interesting with a lot of teams because of how tight the track is, how close, how small the track is, and how close the corners are to one another. You can easily modulate how you're going through the corners and save a lot of fuel at the same time.
Yeah, you absolutely note that. Jacques Eva, by the way, is down in pit lane. So that is the first taker, I would say, on a scheduled stop out there at this point. And it is a very interesting pit lane that you've got. It merges straight back out into turn 2. So you've got to be very careful about who you're going to come out the pits with, because you'll be looking around saying, what can you find? There's one of the Full Tilt V Motorsports cars trying to go and figure out a pass. I think it's Ben Altria here who's on the back of this train. He's got Taylor Lane of Misfits Racing, the Aston Martin, just in front. Then the Mustang of Paddy Faulkner and Jana Schulte as they push into turn 1, just in front of the University of South Florida's campus here in St. Pete.
You mentioned how tricky the pit out is right at turn 2. I keep thinking about a couple of years ago when Scott McLaughlin was coming out of the pits, and he came out right by Romain Grosjean. Neither was going to give an inch. They both ended up in the turn 4 tire barrier. So you can see that, and with the aggression with some of these drivers this week, I think that damage in turn 4 may be consequential at this point, but Ben Ultra, you see, trying to close in on Taylor Lane once again. Not only would that be a good overall position, but that'd be a good position for the Pro-Am class around turn number 10, but everybody kind of held up with the Hassan Shaltain group up there. Yeah, turn 2, the first pit stop's going to be very, very telling with who comes out where.
It certainly will do. That's a little wide from Taylor Lane, and Altria just gets up onto the bumper, can't get the run off the exit, and so it sits itself to be very tough in order to make that pass out there. And so you will also find at a place like this, where the straights are maybe 100 meters too short in places to go and truly get the run in these cars to make these moves, you are going to lose a lot of time, and you need to be over a second a lap quicker to go and make these passes. Good run there by Ultra. He'll now look to the inside here at turn number 4, jams on the brakes, then Lane is going to hold that outside line, but he's going to be so squared up at 5 and 6 that he's going to get no drive, and again, they're going to lose a bit more time here to Falconer.
And that's not something that they want to do because, you know, you want to stay within this group. A little bit of a brush there with Altria. At this point, it's no harm, no foul because drivers are going to be brushing up against the wall all day. And really, that's on their cars, not on the walls too much. But now they start to catch up a little bit with Falconer. And, yeah, this group right here absolutely trying to size up one another down into the final corners. They catch up to another group not too far away from them. And now pit stops are starting.
Yeah, they're all in and now starting to think about it here from this group. Howard Hassan makes the stop. Jacco Vonderlit, Andy Scheel all in then as they look to make their stops. No such taking then from Ethan Critchley, Nikolai Perlison, James Boumet, Aidan Young. So if they're looking around at it, this is one where you might have to be a bit more tactical today nearer the front of the field. If you catch lap traffic, it might be beneficial to make your pit stop maybe 5 minutes early or not. William Guthrie, Pro-Am leader, into the pits. First of the real takers.
All right, so now we get to see how the pit cycle works for Guthrie into the pits. You see him working his way down the long pit straightaway. Of course, there's only 2 lanes here. It's not a very wide pit entry as 4 tires of fuel go in. Aiden Carter into the pits as well. So a lot of your front runners deciding the pit, not so for Critchley, Poulsen, and Boumet as more and more of the back markers come in for their first pit stop of the day.
Yeah, to get fuel and to get themselves set for this second run through. Great. Oh, who's that going straight through then? And actually missing a box is Phil Samways, so that's going to cost a bit of time. Stote also was in the pits, as well as the likes then of Aiden Carter, who are all going to be out and away. Fresh air for Guthrie and Stote to go and deal with. Aiden Carter doesn't get such a luxury by comparison. As we take a look at this pit exit then, the drive with Michael Gray. He'll come out and away with clean air. He'll have Ben Altria to chase down Ethan Critchley just behind, as in has come both Perlison and Young.
So early pit stops, we'll see how that phases out with the undercut as both of those drivers looking to see if they can improve upon where they are. Avdaka into the pits as well. And you see Poulsen taking his Mercedes right to the pit box, and he has to back up just a little bit. So that's going to hurt his time, but there's your leader, Critchley, almost 4 seconds ahead of last year's champion Boumet.
I tell you what, we might need a replay of Tommy Vidal and Leander Gabrielsen out there when they made their stops, because they very nearly off of turn 2 came together, and it just shows the nature of how tight it's going to be, the responsibility of drivers as they make their stops, as Ethan Critchley works his way then here towards 12 and 13, and then turn 14, a 4-second lead over James Boumet. A car in front being Michael Gray, as cars like Ben Altria come in and make a stop, and Ethan Critchley 31 laps on the stint.
Not a bad stint out of your leaders. Looks like Boumet also coming into the pits. Gabrielson's going to come into the pits, as well as most likely Davidson. Yep, Davidson's in, so most of your front runners coming into the pits. There's your points leader coming out of his pit stop, pit stall, I should say. So, great stop by him. And Neve is out in 23.9 seconds, and now the fun begins.
It does, because we are on pit lane out there as it goes through, and that should be a really nice stop. You'll see a couple go away, like Benjamin Gregory, like Paul Smith, and so for the moment, Ethan Critchley sitting there just quietly, getting his stop sorted. Out goes Ben Altria, as the likes of Howard Hassan and Taylor Lane then make their way through. There is the likes then of your driver who's pitted first, Nikolai Perlison, and Perlison's out there and away. It's going to be easy for Critchley. Now look, James Boumet jumps by a mile out there, and suddenly Gabrielsen all over the back of these drivers and actually gets the wall.
You don't want that as Aiden Young goes, looks to the inside of Poulsen for 3rd spot. Thinks better of it. Gabrielsen sitting back there in waiting. Of course, these drivers all have warmer tires, so at some point they may be able to close into at least James Boumet, as you see the Boumet trying to hold off a lap Mustang right there. down base shore drive, but still, either way, this is going to be a fantastic battle as Aiden Young starting to dial up the number 242 for the bottom step of the pro podium.
Yeah, wants a way to get there, and Peterson knows that this has been a case of just dropping a bit of time now to try and gain it back later, and that's the key here. When you have these stops, you can maybe take a bit more, take a bit less, and there are advantages and disadvantages to that over the course of the stint. So it is a gain now for potentially a loss later if you're not too careful. Working through again at turn 1 into now turn 2 and working for this run past the Dali Museum and into turn number 3. Now it's about focus, and speaking of those focuses, changes into turn 1. Guthrie overtaken by Jack Sedgwick as Carol Stone in a massive scrap here, 3-car scrap. Lucas Prada and Michael Evdoka now trying to work a way through.
You know, we're talking about drivers who are having some great races. Carol Stout, hardly see him in the top 10 so far this season, as Prada just rubbing all over that back bumper of the Porsche, sitting there in 10th place. He's having a great run here at St. Petersburg. He opens up a little bit bigger gaps, trying to shake down Guthrie, who is in a battle with Sedgwick, which that's easier said than done with Sedgwick, who's had just been lights out these past couple of race weekends. But Carol Stout taking that Porsche around turn number 10. I'm impressed with his pace right now, but Lucas Prada trying to hold off Michael Evdoka, which is going to be a great battle here, especially when they make their way down into turn 1. It's 13 and 14 beckoning them now.
Ben Cullen's been in the pits for a while, as this was the pit exit then for Tommy Vidal. Leander Gabrielson through, and look at that woomph! That's the sort of level that you look at, Jeremy, of you need to be understanding. Vidal will just be thinking, let's put the power down. He gets there, and you suddenly see whoomp straight across him. It's one of the deadliest pit lanes in iRacing.
The deadliest pit lanes in all of racing, because you see that from time to time. You know, and that's one place, if you had a spotter, I would put them right there, especially for the pit outs, because you could easily take somebody out with just coming out of the pits. That was easily a 30, 40 mile an hour difference through the racing circuit. But either way, you're seeing Guthrie trying to close in on Jack Sedgwick. It's Pro and Pro-Am leader right now in 7th place. They're 13 seconds behind the leader, but man, look at all the fast cars that they have behind them, with Stout, Prada, Evdoka, Carter, all close to strike in case somebody does a wheel wrong.
Well, one small mistake can make a huge amount of difference here at St. Pete, and we've already put 40 minutes in on the clock, so there is still going to be just over an hour left in this race to try and say, hey, look, we can still make something out of this as they work on by. And now look at the traffic that's having to be dealt with by James Boumet. Tag at a wall just in front from Howard Assar. Now he'll have to move over to the right-hand side, trying to follow through desperately. Is the battle between Jacques, Eva and Co. And this is going to force 3 wide behind as they now look to focus. And now what does Peterson do in all of this? Look at what he has to get by. They have license to scrap out there, and they find themselves into position, but the work that needed to be done there by Aiden Young to hold around the outside. Gabrielson can only jump on the inside line, and suddenly on the back of this is Alexander Davidson.
Yeah, getting around these drivers is easier said than done, as Davidson comes down into turn 10, dives a little bit deep, and makes his way around into Dan Walden Way. Of course, Davidson down one teammate, as looks most likely Ross McFarland done for the season. Either way, the Adidas Racing by WSR still has a deep bench, as more and more lap traffic getting in the way. Patty Faulkner tried to go high through 13 and 14, but Jay couldn't make that happen. You see Leander Gabrielson now closing in on the American Aiden Young, who's closing in on more lap traffic. So this scrap isn't over for 4th.
And Ethan Critchley's getting upset on the radio. Janis Schultain wasn't moving over for him. He said in plain English, get out of the way.
Yeah, I think tempers are going to start rising here the more that these leaders have to deal with lap traffic, because it's not like a normal race where you've got 1, maybe 2 drivers you have to get through. Sometimes in these groups you have to get through 5, 6, 7 drivers at a time. And if you're Ethan Critchley, you know who's behind you. You got 2 of the fastest drivers in GT3 racing, in Boumet and Boulison. If they have to catch up, well, guess what? It's going to be a fight to the end, as you see Aiden Young doing his best to keep Gabrielson behind him. Of course, Aiden now has a couple of lap cars that he's got to decide, what do I want to do with them, as he's caught up to the back of Poulsen.
Yep, so he's caught up, and he will note that he can try and go through. I do note as well that Andy Shield has been down on the lane for a while, and he had an issue by the looks of things coming out on his lap. So he just went straight on at turn 4, and I wonder whether that is something a little bit more than just I struggled through that section and missed the braking point. I think Andy Shield realising today that he's not got it to do the full hour 45 and has put the car behind the fence.
Well, whose fault is that one? I mean, it's not like he doesn't make the schedule or anything. Here comes Paul Smith around turn number 2. Oh, that was we talked about contact coming out of pit road.
And then he loses the rear spoiler, and then he has to nose and front it in. He would have probably used his fast repair already, so Paul Smith's St. Pete experience, well, St. Pete, he's out.
Well, Paul comes back here. Like I said, I've got some good restaurant recommendations to kind of finish off the race. As you see Gabrielson trying to close in once again, makes his way around lap traffic, but that's given Aiden Young a chance to open up a bigger gap. It's now almost a second separating these two cars, and Poulsen also making his way around lap traffic. So yeah, I think the driver who has the best chance at doing well is the one who can work his way around lap traffic, and heck, even Davidson has closed in on Gabrielson for the 5th spot as they go down the runway here. Davidson going to look to the inside, late braking move. How late do you like it? He gets around Gabrielson for the time being.
Gabrielson then having to pull himself into line and knows that that's going to be his day pretty much written off. John Lloyd as well out of the race. A game crash then has caught him out, and so there goes another one here as we tick with an hour to go at St. Pete, and Leander Gabrielson now hoping to try and stay with Davidson, who is up into the top 5, and realizing that he can start trying to run the gauntlet, thinking one car at a time in a field like this.
Oh, so you have to think one car at a time, because one wrong move and it's going to be race over for you. As you see one of the BMWs making his way around, but Gabrielson closing in once again on Davidson to try and get that 5th place back. And he's going to have a great opportunity to do it down the end of the straightaway here in just a little bit of time. And he actually loses some ground through the 11-12 complex. So you really got to reassess where you can make that pass. But we saw how far away Davidson was before he made that late dive. And this is racing at its finest right here, because, Jake, you have to, as he said, you have to monitor lap traffic. You have to monitor traffic around you. This is where the pros win their championships.
Yeah, it's not the easy rounds where you go and win it. It's when the circuit, it's when the track, it's when those places are at their most difficult. And so if you can keep yourself in play, you know you've got a really good shot of making something work out there, scoring your point and going around with it. It's why William Guthrie is doing so well here today. It's why you look at James Boumain, he's up fighting for the victory right now. By comparison, it's not for Anders Mira. It's why you look at Tristan Engelstad having a really good run of things here, and drivers like Janus Schultain, for example, a lap down on your overall leader. This is one of the toughest days of racing that you can possibly put together, and the worst bit about it for the entire driving fraternity is here, Jeremy, they all asked for it. This was the vote.
Yeah, it really was, because I forgot, I think it was either this or I believe it was Mexico City. One of the two was going to be the race, and they decided on this one. Quite frankly, I like that they should come here before they went to Adelaide, because the racecraft with these drivers is absolutely astounding. Of course, we might have had the same result as we did last week, with a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of bent-up race cars leaving the Australasia area, but man, the racing here has been nothing short of spectacular, and quite frankly, I would love to see it here on the schedule in regular rotation, because the drivers are absolutely insane the way they're driving through today.
I want to take a look at that race lead, because Ethan Critchley, the gap is now almost half a second. James Boumain has just locked on and has realised, I am not going to let sight of that Lamborghini, working through towards the final corner here on circuit. Turn 14 and needing the push out of the exit and onto the runway here to get the launch through. And I tell you what, this is going to be where it's critical. And you see behind there, Pulisic trying to get by one of the cars from the Fry guys. That's Jana Schulte, the AM Championship leader. And so you know you got 4 seconds, so you can't go crazy right now. But these drivers know they also have a pit stop, and 1 pit stop means, Jeremy, 1 shot to make a clean, effective pass where only strategy makes the difference.
And here's the thing. Critchley and Boumet's gap after the first pit stop was the same as it was going into the pit stop. So Boumet's really picked up some time, made some sort of changes here during this last pit stop, and he is finally flying the way we've known to do all throughout this past season. And they've got a lot of traffic that they've got to handle, so it's going to be a matter of how is Ethan going to keep Boumet behind him. By the way, quick housekeeping, Anders Mira up to 25th after that spin in turn number 3, so his run up to the top 20 looking pretty good here.
But the issue he's got is he's 57 seconds off of the race lead right now, and if this can continue on in the rate that it's going, he might even be lapped by the end of the race, and that is going to be a humbling moment if he gets caught up at that level. You are a championship leader and you're a lap down. It has Felipe Massa 2008 vibes about it over at Silverstone, where he spun 6 times. There is the reigning champion, James Boumet. Now, I want to talk pro wins out there for a moment, Jeremy, because if you took a look at last season, there are only 2 drivers who could go and step themselves on the top. It was James Boumet and Alexander Davidson. This season, through 9 rounds worth of racing, we've had 6 different winners.
Isn't it? How we've seen such a parity this season compared to last season. You had James win 1 race, and if he didn't win the other race, Davidson won the other, or vice versa. They were both battling for wins throughout the double headers. And of course, the enduro rounds, that's where you saw more of a struggle for one or the other to win, because it was basically a dominant show out of both of them. But it still came down to the last race of the season. I don't think we're going to see that so much. I think that this is going to be the last race of the season, but because so many drivers have been up at the front and they've been winning. So we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, it's been interesting to see how many drivers have won this season compared to last season in the championship.
And let's talk Ethan Critchley here, because Ethan's been nowhere up until Adelaide. Do you feel like this is a street circuit specialist, or do you feel like the new iRacing build, something's clicked?
Let's see how Coda comes out, because Aiden Young's doing the same thing. Because remember, we saw him in the top 20, and I said, you know, he's going to get used to this car, he's going to get used to this series, and he's going to come up near the front. And I had that in the back of my mind with Critchley, but I didn't want to sound like a WSR homer, because both of these drivers are very good drivers on the system, and I knew that it would take a little bit of time for them to adapt to the series, but this is even faster than I thought it was going to take them to adapt. So I'm going to say for now, it's the new build that's really helping the 2 WSR teammates out, because they've been driving pretty well these past couple of weeks.
Howard Hassan has run into trouble, and that is at turn 2 on circuit, and he has towed the car back to pit lane. So here we go. Oh, he's lost it middle of the corner. Bang! Hard into the concrete barriers that are there, the catch fencing that's in and around. One thing that you can't underestimate here at a street circuit, Jeremy, is how unforgiving any contact is.
Exactly, especially in a high-impact area where if you lose it in one corner, you're going to end up right in the wall in the other corner. Of course, there you go. There's another pass for car going 1 lap down, easily just moving out of the way. And Critchley says, thank you very much, because I've got a Falcon Mercedes on my rear end. Andy Shield gets the meatball flag, so he's got to go back into the pits. Well, he's done then. That's a shame, because Andy, one of those drivers who I don't know if he doesn't have his lucky horseshoe anymore, but he's not had the best of luck so far this season.
He's blown in pits. You can see there he's going to create a smoke screen for all the virtual fans that are out there and watching at the moment. That's why, if you are out of the race, turn your engine off.
Well, yeah, I guess we can cook some bratwurst on the back of that. I mean, it's fitting for a Porsche, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Jan Dufner, though, what a day he's having. He's up 19 spots from 38th position. He's got David Baker and Owen Eve just in front, and Jan here is trying to really work through the number 18 German. Right now, he'll take one look at this St. Petersburg circuit and go, is this the Norris ring?
You know, Jake, as we mentioned, a lot of drivers having a lot of great days. Dufner, one of those. And one has to wonder if it's just new track blues for some of these drivers that we normally see not having issues. We've seen a lot of drivers with issues. Several are already out of this race. We've lost, what, 7 cars so far to spins or incidents. So, you know, back-to-back new tracks. Next round, we go to a track that's wide open. So I think that's going to bring more of the field in together. But here, this is just a challenge for a lot of drivers who probably haven't gotten much practice on this circuit.
I'll admit that I had to buy this circuit about 10 minutes before the start of the show. It goes to show you it's a very new track, and often what you see in sim racing, season 1 of a brand new circuit isn't run as much as you think. You get a lot of running of it of week 13, for example, but typically the official racing series out there wait a full season before they put it on a schedule or a calendar. Only in scenarios, say for example like IndyCar or Indy Next, for example, would you see St. Pete run, I would say, in season 1. It's maybe in about 3 months' time, you'll see a lot more St. Pete on the service.
And that's going to make things very interesting for a lot of the drivers, because now whoever's raced here, who raced in the official series stuff, they're really closing in there. Hello, that almost was a full Ford Mustang in the hood of the Mercedes. But you know, these drivers, they will have the experience of running a race, at least one race on this circuit. I think that's going to give them the advantage.
Lunge down the inside's not going to get there from Jan Dufner. Owen Neve is holding the group at, well, pretty much an arm's length at this moment. Baker, Dufner, Tommy Vidal, these are very quick drivers that they are holding, working along then to turn number 4 as they dance in between the park out here around this place. A wonderful park, Pioneer Park, as they work over the top, and the stadium about halfway along Bayshore Drive, which is Al Lang Stadium, St. Petersburg Farmers Market. It's had various names over the course of its career out there. It used to be Florida Power Park, which was its original name. Progress Energy Park, it had the name of as well, and it is home to the minor leagues out there. It was the spring training stadium for a long time with the St. Louis Cardinals, but critically right now in terms of a hand egg, oh well, not hand egg, but really football or soccer as it is there, it's home to the USL's Tampa Bay Rowdies.
Yeah, it's mainly a football stadium, I should say soccer stadium for those of us North Americans. Of course, also off of turn 9, you've got St. Pete Pier, which is a great place to kind of sit back and relax and kind of watch the boats go by, the planes come in. But Boumé really trying to come in on Ethan Critchley as they work their way through the taxiway and onto runway 24 center. Down there into turn number 1 as they'll go nose to tail, and there's one of the full tilt Mustangs coming into turn 1. But this might be time for Boumé to try and make a move sooner rather than later, because pit stops, I give another 8 minutes until we see the window start to open for the final pit stop round.
Yeah, that final window, it's about how early or how late, and Boumé here sees Nikolai Perlison then starting to close back in. He's only 2.8 behind him right now, and he is bringing Aidan Young, Alexander Davidson, and Leander Gabrielson back into this group. That's a train of 4 that is looking to try and fight it out for either the last runaway, one car to have complete dominance, or, you know, you don't normally expect to see 6 cars with a legitimate shot of victory here today.
Yeah, it's, man, who would have thought that the end of a Enduro race we might have such a close battle at the end? But I tell you what, if it's Boumé, there should not be a surprise. They work their way once again off the final couple of corners, and Poulsen looks like that he's opened up the gap a little bit between he and Aiden Young for that third spot. So now Poulsen trying to get up there and help his teammate out to try and get to the lead, or basically play defense. Either or, you've got two of the strongest drivers right now going in second and third. So Jake, if I was anybody ahead of these two, I'd be a little weary.
I would be as well, and I would be very, very alert to what I need to do as lap traffic to jump out the way of these leaders. In Pro-Am, William Guthrie leading, and his margin over the nearest Pro-Am, Aiden Carter, is about 5 seconds at this moment. He's on the back of Jack Sedgwick right now, so this is a really good job, 7th and 8th places, even though he is -2 on the run for today, but you can't shake off here a run as Sedgwick actually does tax the wall slightly coming out of turn 8 and turn 9, and now over through this flick left of 10 and into turn 11 onto Dan Weldon Way. And as far as AMs go, it is still Tristan Engelstad who's got his control, but he's now 9 seconds clear of Eric Hartmann, who has now just lost another place. That's Anders Mira getting another one done.
Yeah, Am is a lot bigger gap between first and second overall, but you see Anders Mira making his way up to 23rd at this point, closing in on Phil Samway. He's got 8 seconds, 8.6 seconds till he can catch up to the Pro-Am contender, but not a day that Anders really wanted here, as that spin really hurt him in turn 3. Of course, it's one of the most blind corners if you have a spin to kind of wait for something to happen. We're coming up on another one here shortly, as you see how hard that the BMW driver is really working to try and preserve some of that points lead. But if I remember correctly, I think he still has at least one, he has one drop to his ability, as Ben Gregory going high and wide in turn 8.
Needed to, because lap traffic is playing its factor here. Carol Stoke going through, William Guthrie going through. He's trying to stay with Janis Schulte at the moment. There goes Lucas Prada, and there also will go Michael F. Docker before he's basically given the free real estate to put the power down and start focusing back forward again. So I think it's really tough right now at a circuit so small as this. Cars get a lap down, and suddenly you find with just how congested it is, we've got 13 cars right now at the front of your field, Jeremy, split by 16.5 seconds. You just have to let everybody by.
That's all you have to do sometimes, just to just to get by. So we would see a lot more drivers pull off and let everybody else by. But either way, they're finally learning the tactics of street racing, which is something they could have used last time out. Lucas Prada closing in on Kara Stout as they're heading into Pioneer Park once again. We look at Lucas Prada in their first half of the season, Jake. He was doing quite well up in the top 5, but now we're starting to see a little bit of a fall off, and that's another question I have to ask. It started actually before Adelaide, but really reared its ugly head last time out in Australia. So one has to wonder, while yeah, the new build giveth to Critchley and Young, it taketh away basically from Lucas Prada.
I'd agree with that statement. I think that when you've got so many drivers, so many great drivers over at WSR, it is a game of swings and roundabouts. You'll find something that works, you'll find something that doesn't, and the WSR drivers all chose something different at the starts of the season. So Prada's in an AMG Mercedes, which normally we expect to be one of the best out there. You got Alexander Davidson in it, he's starting to get better. But Aiden Young's out there in a Corvette. Ethan Critchley's in a Lamborghini. Maybe they are slightly better for what we've seen over these first couple of rounds compared to the Mercedes. Maybe that's the difference maker, that we see big, heavy amount of curb there at turn 2 from Dennis Grabowski. He'll have Schulte there behind, who's a lap down on him at the moment. And then you've got the likes of Benjamin Gregory behind looking to make a move. He's trying to chase down Aiden Carter as Dennis Grabowski, noted with a new front grille on his Aston Martin. Fast repair is used up for the former Pro Stripe.
A lot of drivers using that in their first pit stop, just offhand. Grabowski really needed that because he looked like a modified who was running down up the road to Volusia Raceway Park. But either way, it's still very much a lot better looking field than we've seen over the past couple of minutes here at St. Petersburg. And still, Prada closing in on Stout. That gives William Guthrie a chance to close in on Cedric, which, as we know, Cedric, he is just on fire these past couple of weeks and trying to show that he belongs here at the top of this pro field. But Stout, as we mentioned earlier, a great race out of the Porsche driver through Altitude Freem Esports. Not too far away there, though. You've got Avdaka, who's lurking in the shadows.
Carol Stout holding himself well, the Belgian here, as he hits the brakes into turn number 4. Already 53 laps, onto the 53rd lap of this race. These drivers are at this point in time, but you still got the likes of Evdoka, for example. You've still got Prada, who's working through. I am now noting that Benjamin Gregory is starting to drop down the order as he's seen a couple places go away because he's been in the barriers now at turn 2.
Those turn 2 barriers like to bite, as it just claims so many drivers here. You see Guthrie flashing his lights up ahead, trying to distract the cars up ahead as he is caught up to another lap down car. So Guthrie will try and bob and weave, and that's Paul Smith, who, oh, there's the Ben Gregory hit right into the wall, and the car just snaps left. It's something that you see here sometimes.
Yeah, he had to get right over to avoid something more. Now, Paul, yeah, you're going to have to find that reverse button again, Paul, as he looks to get himself out of the way. And that is going to be important. It says hashtag it's not a cult on the rear wing right now, but I think at this point in time, the fanatical nature of his cracked racing car is that he doesn't want it cracked in a million pieces. He's trying to do everything he can to hold steady.
Well, I guess it kind of does make it a cult. Here's Ben Gregory. Let's see how that restart happens. And he able to save it and make sure nobody else gets involved. And that's absolutely huge, as once again, Paul Smith, I think he's going to take turn 10 a little bit more gingerly, as it hasn't gone well for him twice today at the very least. No, 3 times actually, if I think about it right.
And if you want to think about this as well, Aiden Carter losing that place on this lap into turn 1. So Grabowski jumps up a place with that pass. Here's your leading 2, 40 minutes to go. So this is the money moment where you're starting to think about where pit stops can belie out there, and they will have more traffic to deal with in front. That's Ben Altria at Full Tilt V Motorsport that they're going to have to try and get by. So for Critchley, he's got himself set. He knows he doesn't have too much to worry about through 8. Now over towards turn 9 as they work on for the corner, and the drive back down over then with the Marina Bayshore Drive. Turn 10, looking for an easy place for traffic to get out of the way. 1 and 2 both jump aside, and that is going to be critical on their run through. Perlison now 2 seconds off the back of Boumet. So
Perlison doing what he can to close in and try and make something happen here in these final moments of the race. But back to the Aiden Carter Michael Gray battle. That's 12 seconds that Gray is behind Carter, so plenty of time for Gray to make something happen, or to hold off, or Carter to hold off Gray. But that's the battle for the bottom step of the podium. Right here's the battle for the overall lead between Critchley and your defending series champion James Boumet as they work their way out of turn number 3, the long run to turn 4. And it seems like Critchley has his number coming down off the corners, whereas Boumet closing in through the braking zone. The tire zone really helping out the Mercedes, but that Lamborghini just has some great low-end speed.
Yeah, that Lamborghini just can pick up the drive off of the exit. The acceleration factor is enough, and there's not much to deal with. Jacques Eva in for his final stop as they pass the Mahaffey Theatre on the left-hand side, and now into turn 11 as they start working. 12 and 13 is Flick here, right and left. They're now working in towards this final corner of 14. 180 degrees, right-hand bend, and pretty much the quintessential long hairpin.
And exactly, then you got to get that run out of there. But Altria, right now, the meat in the Falcon Mercedes sandwich for the time being. And Critchley trying to hold off Boume, who's closer than he's been the past couple of laps. Let's see if they both decide to come into pit here shortly, or if Boume can get it done on the track down into turn 3 on 1st Street Southwest. They'll hang the right into Pioneer Park, and this is where the fun begins for the Mercedes driver as he tries to size up his opponent, who's been leading basically almost the whole race.
Well, looking at Critchley, he pushed out a little bit wider there through 6 and 7, and so that opened up then maybe for Boume to get closer here off the exit. Just 2 tenths between them, and again, Boume, look how early he lifted there, Jeremy, into turn 11. He is very much fuel saving behind Critchley.
Yeah, he really is, but he's still nice and close there, so one has to wonder if Boume's going to try for the overcut with Critchley most likely having to come into pits and then just a little bit. Thought he was going to come in this time, but nobody coming in, and whoever does, I would imagine now we're at the point, Jake, where if you want to keep your tires, you can just come in for a quick splash and dash.
Yeah, this might be a case where tyres can be a little bit easier out there because you're not doing a full run, and so you'll see those changes there as where you go. You've got to get tyres up to temperature, so to speak, and so you're now thinking about, well, how long do I have to go on it? More traffic in front, and it's going to be Critchley then seeing Seaman Andre Livingston as the car that is directly in front at this moment in time. The next one that they will have to clear as far as the train will go. So this is just about running through this traffic one at a time, Peterson behind then has got to find a way by Ben Altria, who moves over and allows the clearance through of 1, of 2, and is going to need to take a corner here, which is going to stop then the chance then through for Alexander Davidson. Now you're going to have to try and work out where you can get the clearance behind as leaders have themselves comfort. Ultra, I think, is going to have to wait for the outside of the final corner, which he does as they go through. No takers yet, and so no need to panic, but 6 cars, 3.8 seconds, that's your lead.
Yeah, nice and close here. Hadi is exactly how you should like it. And if you don't, well, I can't help you there. Jan Duffner comes into the pit with a pit stop. So we'll see how long that pit cycle is, 21.2 seconds. So I think it's going to be a full-service pit stop for a lot of these drivers, as here comes Critchley diving to the inside for a defensive move into turn number 4. I think Boume is probably smarter than that, knowing he's too far away, but more lap traffic is going to come into play. So that's going to give Critchley another chance to have to defend, especially coming into turn 10.
Now, was that a needed defence? Dennis Skopowski's in for his final stop, or would you say that was Indiana Jones and defender of the lost corner?
I think that wasn't a needed stop. I don't think that Boume was close enough for a high-risk situation. You know, that's a high-risk corner, especially when you're that far away. Now, if he was on his door, that's a different story.
No, that is very true. If you're being hurried and harassed, I think it's slightly different to if you're out there and if you're proving. Livingston into the pits then for the final stop of his race. Benjamin Gregory also in and taking service at this point in time. So pit lane is going to become a hive of activity. And how long are you willing to extend out your run to that 55% fuel tank that these cars all have? William Guthrie and Carol Stokes, we're along with Aidan Carter, they're in for the last time as we work again on to Southwest first, and no move offered up into turn 4.
Yeah, I think if you're that far away, you're probably going to end up parking yourself at the intersection of 1st Street Southwest and 1st Avenue Southwest, because trying to make a move there that far away is just absolutely boneheaded. We know that Boume, he doesn't have that many boneheaded moves in him, but I don't think he wants to really push, because he knows that the points leader, he's fallen back into, fell back after having that incident in turn 3. More cars coming into the pits. In fact, as you take a look at the standings, Mira's stuck at 23rd position, so it's going to be a great point save for Boume if he just stays in 2nd place.
Very much will do. Tommy Vidal, Phil Samways, they are into the pits right now and making service as another piece of lap traffic departs just before them. Jesse Payne-Wilkins, they're in for that stop, which means that the one car directly in front of them is Eric Hartmann. Michael Gray has just left pit lane, so he's managed to get his clearance then with a very fast run coming out, but look at Peterson. He has dragged Aiden Young onto the back. 4 cars within a second and a half as Michael F. Docker's in for the final time.
So more and more of the top 10 are coming into the pits, and now Boume has a decision. Does he stay out or does he go in when Ethan Critchley does? Poulsen and Young have finally cleared up. Dean Timms has closed in. You got the battle for 16th. Also raging out with Thurtle and, with Neve and Baker as they work their way into the final corner. As this race, we see one of them coming in. I believe that's going to be Neve in the Mustang.
Yep, so Owen Neve is going to make his stop. It's worth noting as well that Carroll Stowe has jumped William Guthrie in the final stop there out. 32 minutes left, and this is critical here. It's about who jumps. It's about who wants to go. And again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Nobody wants to be the first one going out there. Tyre warming coming into play for Michael Gray along the main straight. He's next in terms of lap traffic. Driver's eyes view then from James Boume right now, who is eyeing up championship lead, and this has suddenly become a race where any one of these 6 at the front as Jack Sedgwick comes in now has a legitimate shot of victory.
Well, this hour 45 enduro race has quickly become a 30-minute sprint race as Critchley, your leader for the most part, now has to hold off Boume, Poulsen, his teammate Young, and his other teammate Davidson, who are all in the top 5. You can put 1.6 seconds behind him, and Gabrielson is close enough to strike should something go wrong here with a lot of these cars who have to close up to more lap traffic.
On the brakes, turn 11, going on to Dan Weldon Way, and so the train snakes about. Sedgwick leaves pit lane, and he will clear Michael F. Docker, he will clear Carroll Stowe. So if Docker's come out ahead of Carroll Stowe now in terms of the group. Now, Peterson first to go, followed in by Aiden Young. They leave the gap open for Davidson.
Well, this was the undercut that we had the first time that these two tried, and they've got to have fast pit stops. You also see not Watson, but you also see one of the full tilt Mustangs coming into the pits.
We do, and in fact, just leaving in front of them is David Baker. Just behind them in the pits, that's Ben Altria, and also in is Lucas Prada, then making his stop. So a battle of pit crews. It will be down here on pit lane. The grandstand's full as they look for the launch. Aiden Young will pull away first, but then Poulsen here, who maybe could turn around and say, little bit longer on that stop. He'll be looking at getting the launch, and he gets the launch, and he'll get just about, again, a similar pit stop to what he had. They'll come out then of the lane behind Paul Smith, ahead of Jesse Payne-Wilkins, and they'll know they'll have to be aggressive straight away out there as they push. Prada behind Sedgwick right now, and will now be getting out of the pits, and in fact, he'll come out just ahead. That's critical as far as they go. Now, is there a response from these drivers? 1 in, 2 in. Boume is going to go long on the overcut. Everybody else is in.
Well, the way Boume was saving fuel there, I am not surprised that he is still out there as his teammate just tries to hold off. Aiden Young going into Dan Weldon Way. They're still nose to tail. Critchley finds his pit box. Can he make it in successfully? He does, as that Lamborghini looks like he will go for fuel only this pit stop. And I have a feeling that that's going to be the same thing that Boume is going to do, but fuel only for Critchley. I don't see, looks like Gabrielson's off the jacks right now. So who will come out first? Davidson off at about 19.1 seconds, and he's going to jump over Gabrielson, and Critchley gets out in front.
Critchley critically gets the clearance, and so does Davidson. He's ahead. Merge is going to be very critical, and there is going to be Gabrielson. He splits Poulsen and Young. They fought against each other on the outlap there, Jeremy, and critically in this one, it's going to be around the outside by Aiden Young with tyres up to temp. He's going to get around Boume. Surely he's going to dive in now and does for his final stop. But what a moment there as Leander Gabrielson split them up. They fought too hard and they lost the time.
All right, let's see what Boume has to do here in this pit stop. We saw Critchley, who did a fuel-only pit stop. The car did not come up on the jacks. Down Dan Weldon Way, your second-place driver comes. Boomay comes into his pit. Remember, last time this was a critical pit stop, he had to back up. And Boomay on the jacks, he'll take fresh tires to finish this race out. Here comes one of the BMWs out of the pits, and now Boomay off the jacks, waiting, as it's not going to be enough because Critchley most likely will have the lead. Though here they come down the straightaway into turn number 1. Boomay might have it as it's a short run to turn number 2. James Boomay is your leader, gets out, side-by-side contact, and that's going to be a front nose from Boomay.
That's exactly what you see here at St. Pete. You look at playing the risk game, going longer, trying to shoot the gap, and Critchley, to his credit, left the room on the outside. It was 2 into 1 not going, and Boomay ends up with a bloody nose for his troubles, and now will have to fight on the back foot here in this second position. It looks like the damage is okay on the front, so it looked like it registered contact somewhere, but he's okay. But suddenly, it's Critchley, Boomay, and Davidson, your top 3.
Well, the battle's not over, as we said. Critchley did not take tires. Boomay did, and 0.7 of a second separate the two of them, as Davidson's not too far away either. Here's the contact. Look at how close they are.
Goodness gracious. We talk about this being a championship of fine margins. It doesn't get much finer than that between Falcon and WSR. Out there, Ethan Critchley holds his lead, but the question being now, can James Boomay get up to speed, or is he going to fall backwards into the clutches of his old nemesis, Alexander Davidson? See this one here in slow motion. Bang! There's the hit between them as Boomay was trying to get the jump coming off of the run. Number 1 on the car. On the top it says number 44, but that's the difference maker between leading or not here at St. Pete.
Yeah, let's see what the onboard looks like. Man, Critchley just came over like he wasn't there, and really the pit in, pit out test on the radio, I don't think that did as well as we thought. And of course, we'll see what the stewards have to say just before COTA. But Boomay now falling into the clutches of Davidson, as you mentioned. But how much longer will it take for these tires to get up to temperature? You'd have to think that they are probably nice and getting right towards their peak, to where Boomay can close in on Critchley with 25 minutes to go. But you still have a lot of lap cars to deal with, a lot of groups to get around. So I don't think this race is over just yet.
Not yet. 25 minutes. There is still a lot to play for, and Boomay has not given up the ghost here. 0.7 of a second. He's a tenth quicker on that last lap compared to Ethan Critchley. Peterson was the second fastest driver on track. Fastest driver on track was in 6th place, Leander Gabrielson. They are all quicker than each other up the stack. It's like looking at Matryoshka dolls.
Yeah, everybody, they're faster than one another, but it's a matter of trying to pass one another here at St. Petersburg. You only have a handful of passing zones, and this is one of them, but it's a matter of catching up. Now Boomay does not need to save. He can just go full bore around the circuit. This is going to be absolutely tough, because you got to see where the lap traffic is. I'll throw the track map on here, and nothing's coming up yet, but either way, you know that they're going to have to deal with slower traffic in the next couple of laps.
They got Phil Samways and Tristan Engelstad who are battling for position. That's the nearest two, with Anders Mira just in front of that. He's 21st at this moment and looking for at least a top 20. They got Paddy Falconer and Taylor Lane before that to try and get by. But that is where you see the AM category battle is interesting. Aidan Carter currently second in Pro-Am. He's 4 seconds back of William Guthrie, who's on the train of Grabowski and Stote and Evdoka out there at this point in time. And then you've got the leaders out there working through. There is William Guthrie on the bottom of your screen as he looks to run over to turn number 4. Out on track, leading 3, are now leading 5, soon to be 6.
Say, Jake, your top three, yeah, they are covered within a blanket, a half second away from each other. And now Bume, he's stalking Critchley. This is about the closest we've seen him all race long. If I'm Ethan Critchley, I'm taking that defensive line going into turn one, because that is exactly where I think Bume is going to have to do. Is there we go. Uses a bump around the final couple of corners, and that's going to bring Davidson in there. Could we see 3 wide for the lead as Critchley does the snake to try and break up the draft?
Well, there was a case of I'm going to get cheeky, I'm going to move across my line under braking. Bume's going to know this here, and suddenly it's WSR, Falcon, Adidas by WSR, Falcon, WSR. That's your top 5 as they go. It's a club sandwich, and they'll look over here at turn 4 and they'll realize that the moment you start stepping out of line, everyone else is going to start jumping up over the top. More cars in the battle, more chaos.
But of course, now your top 4, top 5 all separate within a second. Throw a blanket on it. How do you like it? Who do you like here in these final 22 minutes around St. Petersburg, as Critchley's going to have to put up a pretty darn good defense that would make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers even jealous heading into Dan Weldon Way. You're on board with Nikolai Pulison down at the bottom as he tries to work his way around Alexander Davidson, but Davidson also in a Mercedes going to make life difficult for the teammate to the championship defender, Bume. Oh, I thought we were going to see contact there through 13 and 14.
It's races like these that define championships. The margin between first and sixth, when they'll look at it on paper, is 1.7 seconds. By the time that they look at the points, though, it will scream a lot more out there and won't do justice for how great these 6 have gone out there and raced today in St. Petersburg. Through off of Dali and in towards turn 4. They will now look once again, and once more there is nothing. And there's, as we look at the bottom here, you got this battle for the top 10 as Grabowski moves up in. Oh, Davidson, contact there through turn 5, and now suddenly the gap opens up. Pulisic to the inside, contact, prizing open the pass down through, and Aiden Young might get a sniff.
Yeah, just a little bit of contact and then running over the curbs there in turn number 5. That unsettled them. That gives Critchley and Bume a chance to open up. Gabrielson sitting back there as well, trying to see if these two are going to have some sort of ta-ta-ta. They almost did, heading out of turn number 10. Now down Dan Weldon Way once again. And Gabrielson, basically the interested spectator, as Critchley and Bume have opened up a 1.6 second lead between these two and Nikolai Pulison, who now has to close in and try and make it a Falcon 2-3 once again.
Well, the gap now, 1.5 seconds. So again, you're going to have to start reeling this back in. You're going to have to continue to focus here on where you're going to start finding that time. They're 0.7 of a second a lot quicker than the group in front, and so that's the chase that's there in terms of where the leaders are for lap traffic. Again, a half-offered defense, and we talk about finite margins. It's just 1 car width that is moved across by Ethan Critchley to say you're not going through like this.
No, it's not, and that's not, again, not a place I'd want to be, except if I'm really on top of somebody, and Bume was not on top of him. As you're on board with Bume looking ahead to Ethan Critchley. Still too far away to make something happen, but this is a sector where you need to close in. I saw a lap down car up ahead, or car's about ready to go a lap down, and yeah, indeed, there's Patty Faulkner, the first car that they'll come upon, as William Guthrie sitting back there off the top 10. He's got Aiden Carter behind him, so it's going to be interesting to see if Carter can catch up.
Yes, Carter, though, has 4 seconds, well, 3.5 to chase down, so he's got work to do here, but looking at this, he's got Altria, Gregory, and the lights go through, so he's just got to jump through the trail. Oh, there we go! Look at turn 1. Bume trying to go the long way around, and now this is going to cut back away. Pulisic now will have to decide, am I for you, or am I going to go for glory myself? Looks over to the right side, covering off Alexander Davidson for any chance of a move. Suddenly, it gets back to a 6-pack challenge.
Oh, this is absolutely spicy here in the closing stages around Pioneer Park. They go once again, and Boume, that was one opportunity I thought he was going to make, but coming off of turn number 9 down onto Bayshore Drive, he still closes in, not close enough to make anything happen, so he resets himself, and that's just the difference between used and new tires between Critchley and Boume. Poulsen, though, closing in as Patty Faulkner, they will have to come up to him sooner rather than later, and now it's a matter of how do Critchley and Boume dispatch of the Mustang as they close in once again. They'll go down the straightaway. I think Critchley is going to have to defend so tight.
If you're Ethan Critchley, you want to catch these cars in the twistier section as actually Faulkner is in for his final stop. Boume all the way across the runway, trying to get the pass. Again has to look to the outside. Can he get the switch back here through 2 and over through turn 3? Sets himself into line. Critchley really trying to open up turn 3 here, but Boume's got to run. Big hard defense over to the inside. No dive is going to be offered over at turn 4, but this is really intensive stuff. Every lap you have to play the game.
Gotta show that I don't want you to pass there if 4. Anywhere else is fair game, because 4, you can easily end up in the tires if you take the corner just a little bit wrong. It just takes a half a car width to kind of mess up your entry through there. But down Bayshore once again towards Dan Weldon Way. It's Critchley, Boume, Poulsen, and Davidson, your top 4, with Aiden Young, the interested spectator in that lone Corvette in the field. That's 2 Falcon cars lay 2nd and 3rd. Critchley opens up a bigger gap. He can breathe just a little bit easier, but with a handful of laps left, Jake, I don't think he's going to be able to breathe easy for long, because now the draft is going to come into play as Critchley holds his line for the time being. When does he make the move for the defense? It's not going to be yet, because Boume, the only way he's going to do is a last-minute pop to the inside, and it's not going to happen through 1.
The biggest threats to James Boume in this group, championship-wise, are at the back. Gabrielson is 4th in the pro standings. Aiden Young is 5th. Ethan Critchley, by comparisons, he defends again on the inside. 19th on 165 points. He is not there for the championship. He's stage hunting at the moment, unless there is a complete breakdown in communications for the best in this series. That's what he's hoping for, just the win, and he will fight tooth and nail for his 2nd win of the season. Grabowski and Stoke, though, will get through, because Ed Docker is around from 9th position, and he tows the car out from turn 4 and 5 and says his day done. Contact with Dennis Grabowski, who's got into his door.
And not a good way to end the race for Abdaka. He's going to fall down further in the point standings as Boume looks to the outside, too far away, but this is exactly what he wants. Here's the replay there, and just a little bit of slight contact through 5, and it was right back into the wall, and game over for Abdaka. But still, Boume, while he is close now, he's not close enough to make anything happen through the 1-2. Oh, that was a little bit of a jump off of Critchley. Could that be the error that Boume absolutely needed?
Well, Critchley hard over the curb in the Lamborghini. You can ride them better in the AMG Mercedes, and the door open now for Davidson, trying to go around the outside here. He can't find a lane in at turn 5. This suddenly here around Pioneer Park is becoming a very, very big battle as Carol Stote is around now.
Well, Stote with a hard end, and he's got a meatball flats. This race effectively over. He'll have to come into the pits and trust that rather than either way. It's the fight battle for the lead here. It closes in on actually the Walden way. It's got to catch up to the last traffic.
Now, this is going to be a really important moment as far as this race goes. There are troubles all about, and again, moving across the line is Ethan Critchley, 1:11.6. Boume again offers a look to the inside. Watch out from deep. Here comes Davidson to the inside now, looking for 3rd place. Not going to get there, and this is where you're going to have to be gunner. Wide goes, then through turn 2. The likes then of Peterson. Here comes the likes of James Boume to the outside. Critchley feeds him a lane to say it's outside or no chance as they go through. Gabrielson trying to find a way through on Aiden Young. He's not going to get there. It's really starting to stack itself up here in the dying embers of this race as one which is going to be absolutely marvelous no matter which way it goes. Critchley right now is proving cantankerous as Stoke, turned by William Guthrie.
Yeah, nothing that Stoke can do right there, as that back end is absolutely trash. And now Critchley coming around once again to complete yet another lap in the lead. He's run 76 laps as your leader. He'll come down the runway 2-4 and grab number 77 as leading this race so far. But it's not been without trouble, as he's had Boumet, Poulsen, and several other drivers on his back end. And Boumet closes it at...
It's about to be 8. Look at Jack Sedgwick and Lucas Prada. They have been burning up with pace. Sedgwick's got by Prada on this lap. Boumet looking to the inside's not going to get there, as that's going to be tough as we go on by. Here is a little look then down on the bottom, then as we go through the left and the right, and say that is just how much they are trying to work at the moment. So that's the front of the group, that's the back of the group. Jack Sedgwick here and Lucas Prada are late entries to this. 8 pros fighting for the win at St. Petersburg. Can you ever write that as a sentence at the start of this race?
I think we're entering into what is going to be an epic finish here before the drivers and really us have a week off around St. Petersburg. And yes, more lap traffic will come into play as you see Carol Stote coming out of the pits. 2 minutes 28 seconds the time there. But how will the field work their way around slower traffic as Boumet looks to the inside? He's going to go side by side. No, he's going to back off.
He tried, but Critchley was a little deeper on the brakes. He covered it off quite well. This is a case of trying to measure it up now. Every single attack is going to be critical. It's like watching Tadej Pogačar versus Mathieu van der Poel at the Ronde van Vlaanderen by comparison here, as they hit the brakes into 4 and into 5. And now the biggest out of the way move is for Taylor Lane, who's going to get caught coming through turn 9 as they work through 8 past the Yacht Club and into this 9th corner. Taylor, if I were you, turn the engine off, get over to the left-hand side, let all of these drivers through. This is what you hope for James Boumet. A pick on the brakes into turn number 11. Where's the clearance going to be with an absolute train of talent now looking to try and say they can be the ones who can win this race?
But here's the thing, if you could hold off the defending series champions, Gabrielsen goes up to 5th around Aiden Young, then easily dispatches of them. You know you're one of the top drivers in iRacing, as here we go, but Critchley tries to make contact between the two. Boumet has to go to the outside, high, wide, and handsome, sets him up quite nicely for turn 3, but Critchley gets a better exit off of 1.
Yeah, pinched at 2, and now Poulsen might want to decide it's time to change tack out there. The 2 Falcon teammates might make a move. No, big defensive line. Here comes Gabrielsen looking for a move. Sedgwick as well to the outside, trying to get a pass done. He can't get the move on Aiden Young's Corvette, but they are now going to start tripping up over each other. Fine moves are going to create a lot of pressure, and the powder keg is now losing its air as they compress and compress and compress, and at some point something will have to give with 10:15 on the clock.
Jake, I'm going to say something I tell my wife when we occasionally watch stock car racing. Them boys are fixing to get bent back there, and we'll see how they fare out. I don't think that they're going to cause something on purpose, but someone's going to put a wheel wrong, and that's going to be game over for about multiple cars. But Critchley having to hold off Boumet once again. Boumet sizing up the Lamborghini down the straightaway, comes across the line yet again, and Boumet closing ever so slightly, goes to the inside. He's going to go side by side, mano against Lamborghini. Critchley has to go wide.
He's in the wall, and now here comes Poulsen. 2 go through. 1-2 for the likes of Falcon Sim Racing. Ethan Critchley tagging the barriers, and suddenly Alexander Davidson jumps on it. He's walking wounded. Gabrielsen now gets himself through. It's 4 that have found a way by at this moment. Gabrovski is on the back. It's 9 cars fighting for the race lead here, and now all of a sudden turn and look behind Grabowski and Lucas Prada. They change places now for 8th and 9th place. This is incredible. A look here at the move. Down the inside from Bume. They do get into the door, but was that Critchley late to the defense?
Yeah, I don't think Critchley could close the door fast enough as he hits one wall, slaps another one. Let's see how hard he hits that first wall. That was a decent-sized chunk, so one has to wonder how that left rear is going to handle here in the closing stages. But yeah, Bume and Pulisic, 1-2 for Falcon as they are your leaders. Let's see if Davidson has anything for these two.
Well, here's the issue that you've got. The question will be now, does Pulisic want it? Big lunge down the inside. Jack Sedgwick gets by Ethan Critchley now. Aiden Young will be next, then Grabowski, then Prada in this group. William Guthrie is only 1.8 seconds off of the back of this, and if he gets involved in it, then Aiden Carter might have a chance to start closing in. Another lunge down the inside now as Aiden Young trades with Ethan Critchley going backwards at this point, and there's nothing really that he can do about it as they start seeing this one go back and back and back. Question is, does Pulisic want to attack James Bume, yes or no? As you can see, there's the little bit of contact, there's the wall, and then over the curve, he has to correct the oversteer, and there goes Pulisic back through into second, as Critchley is in the side, and in the wall, contact with Dennis Grabowski, a big shunt into the barriers, and he's out.
So everything went from bad to worse for your early, long-time race leader. I was just about ready to mention he was doing minute 14s after that contact, so something had to have been wrong with that Lamborghini. Here's the replay of that incident, and really nowhere Grabowski could go as he dives to the inside. Once again, Critchley shutting the door like there was no one there.
That is a huge, huge hit, and ultimately for Ethan, he knows he had a big shot of victory today, and that one has fallen by the wayside. 1.4 is the gap right now that sits, and suddenly William Guthrie on the back of this one here, 6 seconds splitting your top 9 as far as it stands. Will Nikolai Pulisic just look to take the points? Because right now, you've got to remember, there's a team's championship as well to think about, Jeremy. And this 1-2 right now for Falcon is going to be an absolute lifeline for them in terms of the team's championship.
It's going to be absolutely huge if they can finish 1-2, and I think that that's exactly what they're thinking, is Pulisic falling back just a little bit. He doesn't have to play defense too much, so he can kind of take it easy here in the next handful of laps that are left. There's Gabrielsen now on the back bumper of Davidson. This is the battle for the bottom 7 of the pro and overall podium. It's Mercedes and Lamborghini going down the straightaway, and you see Davidson moving over just a little bit, kind of saying, I will defend if you decide to come down deep into turn 1, but really Gabrielsen too far away to make anything happen. But what a change of events. We've gone from highs to, okay, we can all take a deep breath because now the battles aren't going to be as intense with the cork already popped out of the bottle.
Yeah, they were losing over a second a lap with how defensive Ethan Critchley needed to be. Gabrielsen now has got to find a way to move up into third. And I do want to spare a moment to Gabrielsen's teammate, Anders Mira, here in the final 5 minutes and 40 seconds of this race, because he's not done trying to make overtakes. He's only a second behind David Baker in a race for 17th overall. Won't feel like much for Anders Mira, but you have to remember, Jeremy, any points right now are critical if you consider 17th might not be a drop round if things go terribly.
Well, what did I say? That was something to watch out for. Mira making his way into the top 20 after that spin. That separates the good from the really good in this series. And no surprise that Mira was able to muscle his way there. He's got Baker about 1 second ahead of him, so he may not be done climbing up spots in the remaining 5 minutes of this race.
He's not done, and neither is Leander Gabrielsen. Here's the traffic to deal with. It's Dean Timms and Jocko von der Licht who are battling for position. This has really caused the checkup now for Davidson, but critically traffic is just playing enough of a hand, not going to be able to get that one slowed down in time to go and get a lunge done. Leander has to sit. It brings Jack Sedgwick to the rear now, and Jack, who has been up and down and all around today, is now looking at this going, podium? Oh, yes, please.
And that's one driver I would not be surprised to take the podium here with as good as he's been running so far, but it's a matter of getting ahead of two of the best in the business with Davidson and Gabrielson sitting there in third and fourth place.
Oh, big hit! Oh, across the straight. That's Jocko van der Ligt, then turned around. Dean Timms into the side as onto then the run that they had on the likes of Dan Weldon Way. Timms tried to push his way through, and everyone behind had to just scarper to get around.
At least it happened there instead of through the park, because that would have been game over for all the drivers behind. One contact, another one into the car, and that about does it with debris scattered all over the place down Dan Weldon Way. And here's another closer view of the Vanderlith spin, and yeah, there's nowhere to go for a lot of those drivers.
No, they did well. I think only Lucas Prada had contact, and look at that, all over the back. There goes Jack Sedgwick, and we know that Jack struggles in the car, with the lower gears, so I think he struggles with this section of circuit. He can get really good on the brakes in the Aston Martin, but actually going around Pioneer Park, I think is the weakest part of the Aston Martin.
No, I agree. That 4 through 9 complex is absolutely tough for the Aston, and that kind of hampers Sedgwick. Kind of like, being running around with one arm behind your back and one leg, not able to move. So, but still, Sedgwick doing the best he can. Highest place at Aston Martin so far in 5th place, but it might be too little too late unless Davidson or Gabrielson mess up here in the closing stages of the race. I think we got 3 laps to go.
Only the 3 laps to figure this out at the front, but I think Peterson here is understanding that there's not much to deal with. Phil Samway's here. This is the last battle on the leading lap as he fights Tristan Engelstad for position. He is your AM leader at the moment over Eric Hartmann, and only damage will stop Engelstad here at Quad Dash Racing from picking up what they want. Quad Dash as a team, very small team out there in the world of sim racing. Effectively, they are the spirit of sim racing. They're just a group of friends.
And that's so cool to see, because you see a lot of these mega teams come out there, especially here in this series where they race for results. You don't see too many drivers racing with a bunch of friends and for wins, as you see Davidson, Gabrielson, and Sedgwick still locked in that battle for the bottom step of the podium as your leaders in the Falcon 1-2. They're out to lunch already.
They are, and they know as well that the low fuel warning has been sounding for James Boumet, so they will hope that they've got the numbers right there as well at a circuit that has been low fuel burn by comparison to a lot of others. Davidson at an arm's length has kept Leander Gabrielson from making a pass, from making a move, but this is the lap where I think Leander is going to have to basically ride the coattail. Wiggle a mistake though from Davidson. This might be the chance that Leander, the Norwegian, has been waiting for. He'll get a chance on the outside because Alexander Davidson has covered off the gap, and suddenly you realise that might have been the golden goose.
Catching Davidson's one thing, passing him absolutely in a different vein of existence as you work your way around turn number 9, single file still. Gabrielson has to do all he can if he wants that podium, and he's going to have to earn it if he wants, because he's got to get around Davidson. Of course, the only driver that I think would be able to go toe-to-toe with Davidson is sitting back there in 5th place. Nothing against Gabrielson, but that just goes to show the talent here in the field. Gabrielson is in 13 and 14, but able to make a move yet as he sets himself up for turn number 1.
If he wants this 3rd place, he's going to have to do it here and now, or he's going to have to get the almightiest of runs here out of this section to turn number 3. Tucked up underneath, but it's such a good exit by Alexander Davidson. I think the chance now is about to go begging as Duffner and Baker fight in front of Anders Mira as they head towards their final laps out there. This is tough right now in terms of how you've set this race. It's been right up to the wire for a number of different drivers from a number of different teams who have looked around at this race. They've had themselves a shot, but it proves again street circuits are tough to pass at. It's a case of something will happen that will make this all tick. As we got that side-by-side with Mira on the bottom of your screen. They work on Weldon Way, your leaders now. And so we go to James Boumé, who with one corner to go, knew he only had one move to make. And the move he made was to kick the crotch of Critchley. James Boumé's 4th win on the season, and on the 10th race, he wins it.
What a fantastic race as you see Gabrielson taking the inside. He's going to finish 4th as Davidson finishes off in 3rd. There's your Pro-Am winner, William Guthrie, who really didn't have too much of a battle near the end, and we got to wait a while to get to our top AM driver, who is making his way on the backside of the circuit as Duffner falls back.
Mira gets one more, and he might get David Baker here into turn 11. He's got a wonderful run here in the BMW. These are critical points for the Norwegian here, and he's not good enough on the brakes then. He will need an almighty lunge at the final corner of turn 14 if he wants to get 16th place over the line. He'll go to the outside to get it done. How important could this move be in the context of the season? David Baker is going to run out of fuel with Jan Duffner, and they will crawl in a side-by-side battle on fuel to the line. Phil Samways is going to get by them both, and David Baker might not even make it here. Duffner through. There goes Engelstad. He'll pick up more as they head to the line. Baker, 25 kilometers an hour, is gonna just cross the line. Oh, what a race at St. Pete. Can we do this more often? What a day here we have had with the World GT Championship. One thing, though, will be for certain. There will be smiles all around at Falcon Sim Racing with a winning in 1 hour, 45 minutes and 49 seconds. It's an instant classic for James Boumé as he wins by a 10th over his teammate Nikolai Perlisson in a form finish over the line. Alexander Davidson will take the final spot on the podium as Leander Gabrielson couldn't find a way through in 4th. Jack Sedgwick rounding out your top 5. Aiden Young will be 6th with Dennis Grabowski 7th. Lucas Prada there in 8th. William Guthrie makes it 9 cars in 8 seconds over the line to win Pro-Am, as Aiden Carter would be your Pro-Am driver in 2nd place, rounding out your top 10. Michael Gray will end up in 11th with Adam Watson and Arthur Thurtle, both for Altitude Frame Esports Pure Sims. Very good finishes for the pair. Owen Neve had a great drive today, up to 14th, as did Tommy Vidal and Anders Mira. That spin has cost him effectively a chance to fight for the victory today, but 16th is still a good recovery for the points that he needs. Phil Samways is 17th with Tristan Engelstad, your winner and only AM on the leading lap in that AM category, as Jan Duffner and David Baker would both run out of fuel out of the final corner. A lap down would be Eric Hartmann and Jesse Payne-Wilkins, with Ben Altria also finding himself there with Seaman Andre Livingston, and Janusz Schultzane, who had to try and recover through with issues. We saw what happened to Carol Stoke through turn 3. He had to use the fast repair and the tow, as Dean Timms, Taylor Lane and Benjamin Gregory find themselves there. Disconnections for both South Africans late, being Jocko van der Ligt and also Jacques Ever at the same time, so I wonder whether something in the area has hurt both the South Africans there from finding a finish. Paddy Falconer there, and I would say he was a star today until he found the one moment that broke him. Ethan Critchley, he did everything he could to try and win it. He won't get a finish, down in 33rd. Neither will Paul Smith or Michael F. Docker, and same can be said for Howard Hassan, John Lloyd, Ben Cullen, Andy Shield, and then Andrew Archer and Nathan Healy, making 41 drivers here today as they have a wonderful, wonderful run here in terms of this race. My, oh my, what a day we have had, and I think it's only high time that we have a chance to say, look, let's have a chat with one of our drivers. Aiden Young is here with us right now. He was able to finish 6th place here today, but Aiden, it could have so easily have been a win with how it all started to clog up in the final stages of that race. Have you ever seen anything like that in sim racing? So many quick drivers so close in a race so long as this?
Probably only once before, and that was in a special event race, which, I mean, when you fight for a win in a special event, you can expect something like that sometimes. It's not too crazy when you see that happen. And I mean, I'm used to it from karting in real life, you know, when you get a big pack like that and somebody's just trying to cover themselves off to keep the race lead like that. It's normal. You see it happen all the time.
It's your teammate who ends up there, but talk us through the strategy play over the course of this race, because you in that Corvette, you're always up near the pointy end. You were having to work to stay with the cars in front. It slowly brought itself back together, and then it was just a case of looking at trying to take the opportunities that presented themselves.
Yeah, I felt like I had a good opportunity to get a podium, so I'm a little disappointed that I didn't. Some drivers thought otherwise, and you know, they utilized the traffic jam just to use the bumpers on their cars and move people out the way, which, you know, unfortunately in racing there's knobheads and then there's actual good drivers, and a few of those guys decided they just wanted to be knobheads today, and that's the way racing goes sometimes. But you know, I don't really let myself be bullied, so if somebody wants to do that again, they can expect the short end of the stick.
Well, no mercy left from Aiden Young, and so it looks like from now till the end of the season, every circuit is your backyard. All American tracks between now and the end, so a lot of understanding of what comes next. At COTA, do you feel like that's going to be a circuit that is going to be suiting you and the Corvette more?
I'm going to be honest, I have no clue how the Corvette will fare at COTA. Usually it's not one of my strong tracks, unless it's a F4 car, like Skip Barber, for example. Somehow managed to pull out a win last season against Matt and Aaron. But yeah, in GT cars, I don't know where I'll end up, but I'll practice as much as I can, try and develop myself a good set for the car, and you know, we'll see where we end up next time.
Well, we will wish you the best for next time, but still a really good result today for the 427 at WSR. 6th place for Aiden Young is the end result from that one, as we take a chance to say, what a day's worth of racing. Circuit of the Americas will be around in 2 weeks' time. It's another enduro race that will be taking the forefront of these drivers' minds. And if it was anything like St. Pete today, it's going to be another thrill here in the World GT Championship. You can only catch it with us on RaceSpotTV, so do all the great things, the like, the share, the subscribe, and all the rest of it. St. Petersburg with GT3. It looked like, for all the world, it was a recipe of disaster waiting to happen. But today was proven that these drivers rose to the occasion. They gave a showcase that even the immortals of sim racing and racing alike will turn around and go, wow, what a day that they have had. It looked like it was going to be Critchley's Classic to go and hold on to for the entirety of the run that they go through. But at the halfway stage, it's brilliance once more from James Boumet, champion, holding on to a championship lead, and knowing with Anders Mira mired back in the pack, he takes command as we head to COTA.